resolved, tried to, the strength to commit to leaving him. I knew I had to. I knew nothing else would make a difference. So I got myself back to LA. New York. And started going to Al-Anon meetings every day. It's a support group for people who love addicts and alcoholics.
What, if any, communications did you have with Stephen Deuters?
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, let me ask it this way. What, if any, communications did you have with Mr. Deuters communicating on behalf of Mr. Depp?
Objection, hearsay.
I would say agency on that, Your Honor.
You have to lay a foundation for that.
Okay. All right, let's go to 229A. And could you, without saying what the content is, can you tell us who this text message is with?
Johnny's assistant.
What's his name?
His name is Stephen Deuters.
Okay. And what, if any, communication were you having with him following the Boston plane incident?
Objection, hearsay. May we approach?
All right, Ms. Mills.
Keep attacking her, man. Keep attacking her. Keep attacking Elaine. Oh my God.
Did you communicate at all with Mr. Depp in the days following the Boston plane incident?
Yes, I did.
Please tell the jury about those communications.
I heard from him directly. I also heard from him through his assistants who were texting for him.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
You're not allowed to testify about the text messages with his assistant, but can you tell the jury about your communications with Mr. Depp?
Okay. It's kind of confusing because he was texting through them.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection. I'll strike that from the record, and you'll disregard that
understand.
testimony. Please answer the question.
Just confine it to the communications you had with Mr. Depp, please.
That he was sorry and told me that he was in a blackout. He didn't remember everything, but what he did remember, he was ashamed of. He begged me to forgive him, said he understood and forgave me if I never wanted to speak to him again. He texted me at one point and then I didn't respond right away, and he texted me again that he understood that I had made my decision to move on and good luck and I was better for it, and then continued to contact me. I spoke to him when I was in New York on the phone, and he said that he was he had a chip, or that he was going to meetings, that he I think at the time mentioned another celebrity that was kind of advising him on sobriety, or not advising him, but encouraging him. And he was saying, well, look, me and this person, we even went to a meeting. I've got 3 days sober, 4 days sober, and that was the last time. The monster will never come back. Monster will never come back. And because it felt like it felt so much worse than it had ever been before. And because I had, I went to New York and I was trying to get my strength to leave him, I actually thought that it kind of would be the turning point. I thought I had effectively...
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Overruled.
Thank you. Go ahead. Please continue.
I thought things would change.
Okay. Did you draft any kind of email to Mr. Depp to express your emotions and how you felt about all this?
Objection, hearsay.
Well, let's go. I'll lay the foundation, Your Honor. Let's go to defendants 239.
She's worse than Rotten Bomb. Rotten Bun. Rotten Bomb also never say so many hearsay.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
And I would say both present sense impression and definitely state of mind, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection.
All right. So did you ultimately communicate to Mr. Depp what you first drafted up in an email without saying anything about what's in the email?
That calls for hearsay, Your Honor.
I'm just asking if she did.
Not what she said.
Correct.
Okay. Overruled.
Did you communicate to Mr. Depp what you had drafted in the email? And you don't get to say what you said.
Yes.
Okay. And what, if any, response did Mr. Depp have
Why are you fake
to
crying
your
again?
sending that email
What the
to
fuck?
him?
He came to New York to fight for the relationship, for me, to prove that he was sober and he was committed to changing.
I believed he was embarrassed and sorry. He said he was, and I believed him. So I took him back, or I got back with him on the condition that he would uphold his promise to do the treatment, to do the full detox, clean up, and never go back.
So I'm going to take you now up to the June through August 2014 timeframe. And I think you testified earlier, and others have as well, that Mr. Depp brought in Dr. Kipper and his group, correct?
Yes, he did.
Could you please describe for the jury what those next few months were like?
All of a sudden, this doctor gets brought on that we had been talking about. I'd heard this name before.
Yesterday she gets some
And
acting
all of a sudden,
training
this
on
doctor,
crying.
Dr. Kipper, who apparently wrote a book on addiction and was this doctor who was going to be the solution, the cure, and he got brought on board, and all of a sudden the plan was that this team would be involved in Johnny's recovery. So it felt real, it felt serious, I felt like protected. I had already by this point heard a million times, it seems like, promises to get clean and sober, but this felt like a change. And they were going to come to Boston and start working with Johnny, and the plan was to keep Johnny on the same level of drugs that he was on since he was filming. They needed him to finish filming the movie, so he was going to be maintained with his with prescription pills, including the painkillers. And the plan was he would obviously abstain from alcohol completely and all other drugs like weed and coke. And then when he finished filming, the plan was to do
Objection,
the
Your
full
Honor,
detox.
hearsay. And lack of foundation.
I don't understand what the objection, I don't think it is. I think she was just explaining the context there. I don't think she was saying
We
what
could lay
somebody
a foundation how she knew, but it's fine.
How did you know that?
I was involved in the conversations
Okay. Please
with the
continue.
doctors and with his sister.
Objection,
And
Your Honor,
nurse.
that's still hearsay.
All right, I'll
Okay,
sustain the
that-
objection.
That part is. So what happened next? As a result of these communications, without saying what the communications were?
A nurse came to Boston where Johnny was. I just would come for short periods of time in between, on weekends from filming until I wrapped my movie, which I did, I think in May, if I am not mistaken. And then I went to Boston and I was there and saw a nurse was flown out to Boston, Debbie Lloyd, and I believe Kipper came out too. And they put Johnny on a bunch of new medications, which they shared with me, told me about.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
But we have to be careful about.
I saw his medications change. I know the amount that Johnny told them he was on was so that they could maintain him for the filming, meaning not make a drastic change in the amount of painkillers he was taking. But his behavior, his whole personality changed drastically. He would be speaking to me, and at the time I was staying in Boston with him, having wrapped my movie, and he would, in mid-sentence, mid-word, fall asleep. One time I was sitting across from him, and he would come in and out of sleep, being awake, or completely what appeared to be asleep while talking to me, and he had a cigarette in his hand and Johnny constantly smoked. And he just sat the cigarette, as he fell asleep while speaking, down on his leg. They're hand-rolled cigarettes. They don't stay lit very long, thankfully. But, it was things like that, and I didn't understand it. Even though I had experience with drug use in my family, I hadn't seen anything like this. And it was so dramatic, the change, that I was trying to figure out with the nurses and doctors what happened, what changed, how we could explain the change and what medications were causing it. I knew there were new medications involved. So, I was constantly worried and in communication. And Johnny's behavior got worse and worse, more of this passing out, nodding off, waking up in the middle of the night, screaming, waking up in the middle of the night, sometimes crying. And the emotions would change from one to the next, like by the second. I remember we were on a long weekend when he was filming in Boston, and we went to this like a resort retreat hotel, and he was just bawling. It broke my heart. There was just a lot of changes, and I really didn't know. I felt so bad for him, and I thought maybe it was just what Kipper had introduced into the regime, the medications. But what I found out in that time is that he was taking about double the amount.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Was
No,
this your observation?
I saw it.
Okay, overruled.
Thank you. Please continue.
It was taking about double the amount that he told them was his normal when he started the process with the doctors. So after a few, it's, I think, months of going, what is wrong? And, turning him over when he vomited at night or checking his pulse, there were, all of a sudden when I realized the amount was about double, I realized then he had been lying to them and me about the amounts so that he could get extra high before he had a detox. But that I can't that I was so, it was such an agonizing weeks, months. It was so agonizing. I don't know how long it lasted, but I was so concerned for this person, and he had just been doubling up his meds because he didn't.
So, Michelle, can you pull up 1092, Defendant's Exhibit 1092? Amber, did you take this picture of Mr. Depp?
I did.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Defendant's Exhibit 1092.
All right, any objection?
No objection.
All right, 1092 in evidence. You can publish. Thank you.
And can you describe what's depicted here and why you took this picture?
This was during that time when the prescriptions that he was on in the doubling up of the opiates got so bad that he was like this just throughout the day, off and on, and then he would take Adderall and he'd be really animated and ready to go, and then it would be this again, and it was so erratic and it changed so quickly, and I naively now really did not understand what was going on. I deeply cared about this human's well-being.
All right.
And it was very confusing and scary.
So did there come a time then that Mr. Depp went into detox for oxycodines or whatever they're called?
Oxycodone.
Yes, when he finished filming, the plan was to do a
Oxycodone.
detox, and that's what we did.
And when was that?
Oxycodone.
That would have been early August of 2014. I believe we left. We were there for, I think, a week to 10 days, 8th through the 18th, more or less.
And we've heard some
Unprofessional.
testimony about this, but can you please describe for the jury what took place during this detox on the Bahama Islands in August 2014?
It was for the first few days, okay, peaceful. The nurse, and then later nurse and doctor were staying on a different part of the island. A few minutes drive by ATV, like 10, 15 minute, by one of those ATV vehicles. But we communicated via walkie-talkie and occasionally through text. And it was okay at first. And then the behavior, then it just really wasn't okay. It was up, down, he'd be mad at me. Then he was wanting a hug. He cried a lot, and then he wanted to have sex a lot, which is just not like Johnny at all. And it was just like that. It was just up, down, mood.
Johnny!
It felt like a constant was catering to the mood. That whatever he was going through at the time, I was just trying to adapt and kind of roll with it and provide support. I was taking his blood pressure. I was on a schedule and constant communication with the nurses about delivering the meds, giving him his meds at a certain time. I was just trying to take care of him. And a few days in, I guess the effects of the detox really started to change. And it went from this erratic behavior up and down to just really down or mad. He would burst into anger at me, yelling at me. I crossed the table. I walked away from it at the table. I crossed the table in a certain way, and he screamed at me about that and tried to overturn this table. Luckily, it was bolted down to the deck, but I remember him shaking it and screaming. And at a different point, he was really calm and sweet and thanking me. And then another, he looked like he was balancing out, and we had a conversation, and he was saying he wanted to quit the detox, and he couldn't do it anymore. And I was trying to find the language to encourage him. I was trying to remind him how much he wanted that, how much he had told me he wanted that, how much I was reminding him, he told me all the time, I saved his life, and he wouldn't be doing this without me. And I was telling him these things, and at one point in our conversations, I told him about how...
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Please try to continue without what you said, please.
I said something to him, and he got so angry at me, he slapped me across the face. But he did it while crying. It was the weirdest thing. He was crying, saying no woman had ever embarrassed him like that. No woman had ever made him feel like that. I heard that for the rest of the trip too, just on repeat. And I felt bad. I feel bad. Still feel bad. But, I didn't want to make him feel embarrassed. That's not what I wanted to do. It just was in over my head. I don't know how to detox someone. I don't know how to help them through that. And I shouldn't have been there. I don't...
Why were you there?
Because he asked me to. And I didn't know that was a phenomenally dumb idea. I don't know why why the doctors and nurses didn't tell me not to. I had no idea what that was going to look like or be like. And it was hell. We're on an island. I'm trying to take care of him, and he was hallucinating and
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Overruled.
screaming at me for things that I said when I didn't say any. I hadn't said anything. I would tell him, Johnny,
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Well, I think in the context, Your Honor, it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted.
What's it for?
It's just telling the context of,
I'll sustain the objection. Thank you.
please continue and just say what he says and what he did and what your observations were.
he was accusing me of having a man in the house with me. We were in a single, in a cabin. It's basically one room with a closet and a bathroom. I mean, there's nowhere
hide, really. I mean, there's a closet and a bathroom. And he, at one point, told me that I was hiding somebody in the house. Another point, he was communicating with someone not in the room. It would yell at me and then yell at someone else. It wasn't there. And I tried to ask for what I should do. I didn't know what to do. It was terrifying and strange. The whole week was...
So after you left Bahamas and finished with the detox there, where did you go from there?
We, meaning Debbie Lloyd, Dr. Kipper, and I and Johnny, we flew back to LA, and he was going back and forth between saying he wasn't going to continue to, he was committed. It was back and forth. Everything was up, down, erratic, like changing every second. And we got to LA, and Debbie and Kipper communicated with me. I won't say what they said, but I decided it would be probably in everyone's best interest if I went away to a hotel. Johnny put me up in this room in this hotel while he finished the process of detox in LA, and I had my friends out with my girlfriends there to support me as per usual.
So Michelle, can you pull up 272, please? And after you both returned to LA,
Wow, do they bring tissue?
did Mr. Depp communicate with you by text while you were apart, while he was finishing the detox?
Yes, he did.
Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of 272.
Any
Defendant's
objection?
Yes, Your Honor, to the first message. Excuse me, Your Honor, to the
You
second.
mean the response?
Right.
Okay.
It's just present sense impression, but I'm understanding Your Honor's
Yeah.
rulings on that.
Okay.
So
If you want to redact it,
can we
that's
redact that second message? All right, Your Honor,
All right. Any objection to 272 redacted?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, 272 is in evidence, and we will publish.
and Amber, I'm going to show you now what is Defendant's Exhibit 272, and this is on August 20, 2014. It's a text message from Mr. Depp to you. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And just so that we can highlight here,
Steve.
he's calling you, he says, just to let you know that I'm fine, my angel, I miss you, of course, but this was the right thing to do to speed up the process. I love you more than life. Yours, Steve. Do you see that?
I do.
Who is Steve?
So what, if any, expressions was Mr. Depp giving you at this point that he was angry with you ever
Who's Steve?
having to help participate with the detox or to be on the island or anything along that line?
Objection, form, compound.
Steve will do
I'll
it.
allow it, but just for trying to keep the record clear, 272 has already been entered into evidence without that redactions, and there wasn't any objection. So I would wish, if I could have both sides to keep track of their evidence. It's not my job to keep this.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just got a note to that effect, so.
Okay, so 272 is in evidence for that. You can clear the redaction and publish it. It's really the party's responsibility to take care of the record, not mine.
My apologies on that one, Your Honor. All right.
All right, and I overruled the objection, so she can answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Stone
Sorry,
Cold
can you
Steve.
remind me what the question was?
Yes,
That's fair.
that's fair. I said, what, if anything, did Mr. Depp say about that you were torturing him on the island and he didn't want you there?
Very confusing for me to hear that because
I can't live without you. You are my
even
everything.
though
There
he
are
was
no words. I just want you to be
hallucinating
okay.
and angry at me at various moments when he would have these kind of episodes,
2014, this one.
I did nothing but try to take care of him. I'm not a nurse. I did my best to support him. And he thanked me. He thanked my mom. He thanked my dad. And told me, of course, I saved his life. That he wouldn't be able to make this change without me. And that this process was horrible and hard on him and us and me. But that he was so thankful that I was there for him.
Okay, we can take this down now, Michelle, thank you. And I'm going to take you up to September, October of 2014. Do you remember
Acting, crying.
filming Magic Mike 2 in that
Fake
time
crying.
frame?
Yes, I do.
And what, if any, connections did you have with Mr. Depp in that time frame?
Well, I bargained with him about me doing the role. He told me he would call the actors. It was a mostly male cast. But I bargained with him.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Why are you laughing, Johnny?
Don't say what you said, just say what he said, okay?
He reluctantly kind of agreed to me working on this movie or taking a job. He was filming a different movie in London at the time. I wasn't going to play a sexualized character. I wore no makeup or minimal makeup in the movie. No sexy clothing. No kissing scenes. No sex scenes. So I went and did that film in October of 2014 in Georgia while he finished his movie in London. And then at some point he came out to pick me up in Georgia and was there for my last day or two of filming.
I'm going to ask you to turn to, Michelle, can you bring up 310, please? Defendants 310. Did you have communications with Mr. Depp about auditioning for another role in this time frame?
Objection, Your Honor. I'm going to object to the exhibit as hearsay.
I'm not sure who's in the text exchange.
It is a text exchange, Your Honor, so, but the green is Mr. Depp. And the one I'm most focused on is on the second page, Your Honor, the top.
The green bubble on the second page?
Yes.
All right, so just that text?
Based on Your Honor's rulings, yes.
Any objection to that text?
No, thank you, Your
Okay,
Honor.
if we can get that redacted.
And while that's being redacted, Amber, let me ask you, what, if any, anything was Mr. Depp saying to you in this time frame? We're talking in November 2014 about you not working anymore or not taking on any more work or auditioning.
Objection, Your Honor, compound.
They're all the
And
same
leading.
subset.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Johnny was angry with me for working. I had finished my job, and I needed to eventually find another job, meaning a movie, to work on. And he was furious at me for, he found, like, we call them sides. They're just pieces of an audition, pages. And he found something that had been sent to me to consider auditioning for, and he blew up at me for, yeah, I think what he said to me is that I didn't tell him, that I didn't ask him, and that because he didn't know about that audition that I hadn't done yet, that I had been hiding it, and was furious at me. I ended up not doing that audition, I believe. Well, there was a few, one or two in that time that I did I did audition for, and one or two that I didn't.
I'm going to ask you now to take a look at what is Defendant's Exhibit 310. Do you recognize this email from Mr. Depp?
Yes, it's a text.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission of...
It's in evidence, 310.
Oh, okay.
It's evidence
Thank
with
you.
redactions, so I published it.
Please tell the jury about this text and the context.
This was Johnny's response to me apologizing for having an audition.
Okay. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to stay in November of 2014. And did there come a time that Mr. Depp told you that he understood that you were not going to accept any more jobs, that you were going to stop working?
Well, Johnny said this to me in an argument, in a fit of rage, is the best way I can describe it, and kind of alluded to me having agreed to not work anymore, which if you don't know me, is preposterous. There's no way I would agree to that. Although I did make concessions and gave up a lot of
Objection,
these
Your Honor,
fights.
hearsay.
That wasn't
Overruled.
Thank you. Please continue.
So he reached out to other people and to me to that effect, furious at me for taking meetings. There was one in particular I wanted, one meeting I wanted to take because it was a project in development with a sci-fi writer. And I remember I wanted to take that. These things were just, they were just constant fights. But in between them, when things were good between Johnny and I, he would be, he would word it to me like, I'm trying to look out for you. You say that you don't want to be objectified, but you're doing it to yourself. But at first it was because I dressed a certain way or had sex scenes, and then it just got more narrow and more narrow and more narrow what I could do without being the blame for why the industry, Hollywood, the entertainment industry, was putting me in a box and objectifying me. So it became myself, not because Johnny, said you have to do it this way, but because of all the other things that he said and did. I eventually found myself making decisions about my own career, about how I dressed, about how I wore my hair, how I presented, where my eyes were cast when I walked into a room. And I believe those were my own decisions.
Amber, did there come a time in November of 2014 that you engaged in some couples counseling with Dr. Cowan and you and Mr. Depp?
We attempted to. I had stopped seeing my therapist in 2014. I couldn't sustain seeing her and be in the relationship with Johnny, and I chose Johnny.
Eventually, Dr. Kipper introduced me to his close friend, Dr. Cowan. And I met with Dr. Cowan and agreed to let them share communication about my care, my treatment, both what I said to Cowan and what I said to Dr. Kipper, who had become my physician as well. He also put a nurse on me that would be my travel companion, and that travel companion would keep tabs on me and report to Dr. Kipper, who reported.
Okay, so tell us about the couples therapy in November 2014.
So
my
Dr.
Jesus.
Cowan, this man who is friends with Kipper, who's treating me, agreed to see Johnny and I together. And I don't know how many minutes of that went on before Johnny stormed out, knocked something off the table on his way out, and rolled a joint in the bathroom before storming out of the office, slamming the door.
All right, so I'm going to take you up to December of 2014, and specifically December 17, 2014. And I'm going to ask you to take what, if anything, do you recall of an incident with Mr. Depp relating to Clive Barker?
He was the sci-fi writer that I liked. Well, fantasy sci-fi writer. I kind of had a dream project based on a book that I loved of this author. He's just a weirdo genius, artist, writer. And I had a meeting with him through another director about a piece of property he wanted to make into a movie. And I just remember I believe we were at the ECB. It was in December of 2014 when Johnny found out that I had this meeting scheduled, and was furious at me. Accused me of
Whatever.
having this plan to sleep with this. He was mad that I was taking the meeting at this man's house, but the man was very ill, like terminally ill, and not able to leave his bed or his home. He was under home care and very ill. And the person who was introducing us explained to me how we had to meet, and I did. And that was a big problem for Johnny. At first, it was that he was concerned about my safety, and I thought that was sweet. And there is something that I thought was sweet and romantic about that, but combined with the drinking, it was not very long before I was being accused of full on having this other plan to sleep with the writer in order to get this part that I was already being, basically offered to develop. And it was just this, he switched from he was accusing me of having this ulterior motive with this director, the director having it with me, then with this writer. And the important thing I can try to get across in this moment is that nothing I said, no amount of explaining, apologizing, accepting, not accepting, agreeing to not go, nothing worked. Nothing changed. How mad he was at me and constantly telling me I had done something wrong to deserve what was happening. Until, of course, he takes it too far, hits me too hard, breaks too many things in the house, and then leaves, which was the pattern. And he would leave and not have to deal with the cleanup. He never had to deal with the cleanup. He never had to deal with the destruction or see me or the house that he had destroyed. He never had to deal with my face the next day. He would just go. I called it splitting. You just split. And eventually I'd get an apology of some kind, or I would get an offer to have him come over. He would offer to come over and talk or give me my piece or give me my goodbye. And in many ways, I found myself accepting that, knowing it was kind of false pretense, because I too wanted to resolve it. I didn't want him to think I was sleeping with this sci-fi writer. I didn't want him to think that I was this slut he said I was all the time. I mean, part of me really wanted to believe that he didn't mean those things, and I wanted to get to that part of him that would tell me he didn't mean what he said and that he was acting this way because he was messed up, you know. And the cycle would repeat, I suppose.
Was there any physical violence on or around December 17, 2014?
Yes is the answer to your question. I don't really remember what happened in that fight. I remember more afterwards. I remember how apologetic he was for it. I remember him telling me he took it too far. I remember him saying he'd never do it again. And I remember wanting to get to Christmas. You know, Christmases are hard probably for everyone. And I remember it was close enough to Christmas that I was tired. And I wanted to be in a I wanted to be in a kind, gentle, peaceful state for Christmas. I didn't want to go through a breakup at this time. I didn't want to, you know, that's what I remember of that time.
Let's
Whatever.
bring up Defendant's Exhibit 321.
Lunchtime. Lunchtime.
And this is on 12/17/2014. Is this a text message exchange between you and Mr. Depp?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Defendant's 321.
Any objection?
Sorry, Your Honor, just a quick minute. Yeah, Your Honor, no objection.
All right, 321 in evidence. You can publish it, please.
Damn it. Camille, you're so hot.
Amber, I'm just going to turn your attention to this. This is an email exchange between you and Mr. Depp, and he says, I am truly sorry to have upset you to the degree that I have. I couldn't be more sorry for yet again ruining your day. I do, of course, take your generosity, your selflessness, your affection, and your sweet doting deeply into my heart, and I think that I've been reciprocal. Agony is never the answer to any equation or occasion, nor is rage. Please know that my apology is sincere and solid, and as stupid as it sounds, I hope your meeting with Clive Barker is excellent. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and then you respond, thank you for your words, and you indicate you just left Betty Sue's, that's his mother?
Yes, and I then had a glass of wine with my former agent, Megan,
Okay.
that afterwards,
What's the point? This is
she said she
2014
encouraged-
before the article
Objection,
even.
hearsay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, and we can take that down. Let's bring up 325, Defendant's 325, please. And this is an email exchange the following day, 12/18/2014, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd move the admission of Defendant's 325. It's already in, oh, it's already in, Your Honor. My apologies. We'll get that figured out at lunch.
With what redaction?
It's already in,
It's
so.
been in evidence. Does anybody over there have the list of evidence that's already in evidence?
Yes.
Okay, we're making sure.
Ours indicates it is. It's in.
It's in evidence.
Without redactions, Your Honor?
It was redacted. I don't know what it was redacted
The
to.
redactions don't.
That's how it is in evidence, Mr. Murphy? We can check, we'll check our copy.
Thank you.
Lunchtime. Thank you. Lunchtime, thank you.
It's fine, Your Honor. We've confirmed.
Yes.
Thank you.
It can be published.
Thank you.
You can't see it on your screen? All right, we'll take care of that during the break. If you could just share it there. Oh, got it? Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this is from Mr. Depp, right? Says, it's a way, I've let it go too far, went too far. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
I always regret it when I jump, or worse, when you jump. I don't want to be conditioned to continue that behavior. Therefore, I'll put in heavy work with shrink. What is your understanding of what he's referring to with shrink?
Psychologist.
Objection calls for speculation.
Did you have an understanding of what he meant?
Yes, I knew exactly what he meant.
And what did he mean?
Shrank is shrink.
What did he call shrink?
Johnny called shrinks, meaning of psychologist, therapist, shrink.
Okay. I'm sorry for being less, for your disappointment in me, for my behavior. I'm a fucking savage. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. Gonna lose that, gonna lose that. The devil is all around, right? Now, you respond to this, and of course, before you go there, and he says, I am well aware I should have been bigger at the moment, and that it will never again manifest in negative experiences. It can be done. What a killer concept to visualize. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And you respond, I love you, I miss you already, correct?
That's right.
Right. And what, if anything, is that consistent with the cycle that you have described?
Well, the language he used after particularly violent episodes was savage, monster, devil. And so we ended up both calling his other side, the side of Johnny that would do and say unbelievably horrible things. It was very different from the other Johnny. That was, in my opinion, exact opposite. And this is typical of the apologies that I would get when he took it too far physically. I was encouraged because I thought it meant he understood that he could really hurt me. Sometimes I didn't think he understood how much he could hurt me physically. I mean, so after this,
Steve
I
Harvey.
had a visible bruise. I don't remember where, but
Steve
I
Harvey.
remember what other people. Well, I can't say that what they said. So
Oh shit.
anyway, and I, in these fights, would try to stand up for myself. By December 2014, I was pushing back. I'd push him off of me. I'd try to hit his hands away. I tried to always get back up, which sometimes, not sometimes, almost always made it worse. Always seemed to provoke him. But I tried. And worse, I would yell at him. I'd scream at him. I'd call him ugly names. So ashamed of the names we'd call each other. It was awful. It was awful. We both got into that pattern. It was so... I felt so angry that this was happening to me, and it just felt so
Oh, so it's both.
unfair, It felt like nothing I could do, felt like nothing I could do would change the sobriety patterns, felt like nothing I could do would stand up for him, and nothing I did made him stop hitting me. Nothing. So, I tried for over a year, maybe two, of just not responding physically, not responding verbally, just staring at him. I tried to freeze. I tried to go to a different place. I would try then lashing out verbally. I would try to threaten that if he hit me again, that I would call the police. You know, the police were called several times, but I tried to do everything. I even threatened to leave him, you know, and tried to leave him, and nothing was working. And I think by this point in our relationship, we're both saying awful things to each other, screaming at each other, and unfortunately, when Johnny would start hitting me, he'd just win. I'll also describe it.
This might be a good
Okay,
time for the lunch break.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and take our lunch break at this time until 2 o'clock. Please do not discuss the case or do any outside research, okay? Thank you.
Yesterday cried too little, today cried too much. Fake bitch. Fake bitch.
All right. And again, ma'am, just don't discuss your testimony with anybody this time, okay? All right, thank you. So 2 o'clock?
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
And welcome to a special hour of For the Record here on Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us as we are live right now in Fairfax County, Virginia, outside of the Fairfax County Courthouse, where day 15 of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial is underway. I'm joined here by Law and Crime legal analyst Gene Rossi, and I say this is a special hour not just because we're outside live of this courthouse, but because on this hour, as they're currently in a lunch break, what we're going to do is we are going to be taking your questions. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitch, you put a question in the channel, pin it there. We'll answer it on air to the best of our ability. If you have a question about this case, now is the time for the next hour or so. And we're also going to break down some of the biggest moments that have been happening in court. So to get us started, I want to actually play some of Amber Heard's testimony from yesterday. And this was the moment when she described the first instance she says that Johnny Depp hit her.
I was just sitting there on this carpet, looking at the dirty carpet, wondering how I wound up on this carpet and why I never noticed that the carpet was so filthy before, and I just didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. I just sat there thinking, how much time do I have till I figure out what I need to do?
Master
Because,
manipulator.
God, did you just hit me? No, I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want this to be the reality. I didn't want to leave.
She just
the man
admitted
I was
at
in
the
love
end
with.
there that
I know you don't come back.
She
from
is-
that. No, not dumb.
she defamed
I know you
him
can't
and
hit
he
a
defamed
woman.
her, so
You can't
both
hit a man. You
is
can't
at
hit
fault.
anyone. You can't just
It's not one-sided.
hit somebody. 'cause
So
they-
nobody wins,
I
and
knew there
both
was
also
I
lose.
knew it was wrong, and I knew that I had to leave him. And that's what broke my heart.
Bitch,
Because I didn't want to leave him.
loser. Oh, you
Out
you
of
get
that
beaten
room, I'd leave.
like shit, but you don't
Best thing
leave
that ever happened.
because you want the money, the money, the
And I
money.
wish I could sit here and say I stood up and I walked out
Fuck
of that house
you
and I
lah.
drew a line and I stood up for myself.
Oh, you don't leave, then it's not Johnny's fault. It's your own fault for not running away,
I was just looking at the
not leaving.
dirty carpet trying to will myself to get up, to walk out of the door because I knew I needed to. And I really slowly, I stood up and I remember looking at him in the eye and just looking at him, frankly, because I didn't know what else to do. And before I know it, he starts crying. And, you know, like, I had never seen an adult man cry. I didn't even really see my dad cry at my grandma's funeral. You know, it's weird. And he's crying. Tears, I mean, just falling out of his eyes. He gets down on his knees and he grabs my hands and he's touching my hands.
A grown
and
man
he's
cannot cry.
saying to me, I will never do that again. I'm so sorry, baby. I put the away. I thought I killed it and it's done. I thought I put the monster away and I've done it before. It's done. But on his knees.
Chose to stay in the relationship.
Yeah, I did. I believed it, but, you know, I believed it wouldn't, I believed that there was a line he wouldn't cross again, and that was it.
And what makes this so difficult for the jury is they have to determine if she's telling the truth. So brings me to my questions. I'm not only here with Gene Rossi, I'm also here with Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy. We're going to break down your questions right now. I talk about this because here's our first question, Gene.
Yes.
This is from Madison Brook. Why can't a lie detector test be used, you know, on the testifying individuals, generally speaking, but also in this case, wouldn't it make a trial a lot easier?
And this is Madison?
This is Madison.
Madison, that's a fantastic question. State and federal cases have concluded that a lie detector test is not reliable, although I feel your pain here. And when I was a federal prosecutor, I actually had a case where a man would charge $20,000 to teach people how to pass a lie detector test without lying. And so it's an unreliable device in seeking the truth, so it's not admissible in trial. But you're right, it's used by the CIA and other federal agencies, if not state agencies, to detect deception, but it's not something that would be introduced as evidence. Very good question, Madison.
And listen, you know, the jury is the human lie detectors in this case. So, Anjanette, this is a great question from Hirame. How does she remember, meaning Amber Heard, how does Amber Heard remember so perfectly things that happened 8 years ago? I like that question because as I was thinking too, if you take the stance that she's making everything up, that's a lot of details to remember. So that's the flip side of it too. What's your take on that?
Well, you know, I think it cuts both ways, Jesse. You could say, if you believe Amber Heard, that these things were so vivid and so remarkable that they are basically imprinted permanently on her brain, or you could say she's an actress and she testified in the UK and she knows her script and she's rehearsed. So I think it cuts both ways. And that's the question the jury is going to have to answer. They are literally the human lie detector. I'm not a big fan of polygraphs and things like that, but this is the question for the jury. This is a search for the truth. So either these things were so vivid and traumatic that she just remembers each detail almost in slow motion, or it's a script, and that's what the jury is going to have to decide. Or it's possible that it's somewhere in the middle. It's really tough, you know, because some of these things are very detailed, and there are text messages and things like that that document some of these things as well.
Right, and some corroborating evidence there, which it kind of brings me to the next question we have from Lissa Bell. I'll answer this one. Since Gene answered one, Anjanette answered one. When does cross-examination start? How much more of her team do we have to listen to? So clearly we know where you stand on this case, but I will jump in here. Look, we can't get confirmation, but what we can probably see based on what we're seeing is there is a lot more of direct examination that is going to imagine if she finishes up her whole direct testimony now, whole questioning by her side, there's a big long break and then cross-examination when we come back into court. I think that's going to be interesting if we see that. Now, let's continue on actually a little bit more. Again, we're taking your questions on YouTube. We're taking your questions on Twitch. We're taking your questions on Facebook. Just pin them there. We'll answer them. Let's play a little bit more of Heard on the stand. And here's where she discussed the cycles of abuse between the couple and how Depp's drug use played a part in it. Take a look.
Would you please describe for the jury some of the cycles you had with Mr. Depp through 2012?
So in 2012, the violence was pretty, you know, relative to what it became, pretty, slapping, backhanding. Well, it went.
Cannot stand her voice.